Hello, everyone. Welcome to 96Boards Open Hours. This is episode 62. Hello, John Mark, everyone. You can do the jazz hands. um, a really kind of normal episode this time. Last week, we did something really cool with David Tischler from Mini Nodes. If you want to check that out, you can always go to our YouTube channel, 96Boards YouTube channel. I have, as always, a certain amount of announcements. And then we are going to just kind of roll with the punches. I know that there were some people who joined in here earlier. I've been in the channel for, of course, over an hour with some questions. We can take some questions. I think Daniel Thompson wants to talk a little bit about an interesting forum post that he came across or some work he's been doing on the Carbon. John Mark, you're welcome to talk about some stuff if you like. Mad Dog has returned to us after a long journey. And then on the side, we've been working with Michael Welling on a new community mezzanine project. So there is some stuff to share. There's stuff to discuss. But in general, I mean, I don't really have anyone to interview or anything. So moving forward, my couple announcements. One, as I promised, I would be sharing this frequently throughout the next few episodes until Linaro Connect rolls up. So for those of you who are interested in checking out Linaro Connect, there's a lot of really interesting stuff that goes on 2 times a year somewhere in the world. This time it happens to be in San Francisco, California. We have the link that's going to be posted up by Sarah. She's going to post that up for us in the chat. Feel free to visit that. And if you are interested in attending, register. We have our newsletter, which goes out every Thursday morning. I've been trying to be as consistent as possible with this. You can keep up with all of the kind of new 96Board stuff that's going on. Mani in the chat here, he's the applications engineer for 96Boards, wrote us a nice little piece on his work with libmraa, and you can check that out. Every week it's different. And then, of course, for those of you who are joining us on IRC, we have our hashtag OpenHours channel. And one thing I neglected to mention was that today I'm going to be giving away some cool stuff. There is a community forum that we do every week, and I was pleasantly surprised by some of the names I saw in there. And the person who had the most visits, we'll talk about this a little later, all right? So stay tuned for about the end of the last 10 minutes of the show. I will be sharing our top 5 community contributors to Open Hours, and then we will be giving out the community form for this week and starting fresh. Well, not starting fresh, you still keep your points, but moving forward on into hopefully giving someone a fresh Linaro Connect badge valued at somewhere around $2,000 to Linaro Connect San Francisco. That's all I have. All right. So I wanted to kind of ping Daniel first, unless someone wants to jump in with questions. We're ready for questions. I know Renuka, you wanted to talk about something. You had some questions about the audio mezzanine, and the perfect people are here. So we have Sahaj Sarup. He's done work on that. I've done some work on that. John Mark has done work on that. And yeah, you can type it in the chat if you don't want to speak up, or you can unmute yourself. We'd love to have you ask your question live. Nada, you're muted, so you need to unmute yourself. While I take a sip of coffee. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to Comic-Con tomorrow. For those of you who know what Comic-Con is in San Diego, that's going to be a lot of fun. I got my badges right here. I'll show you it. Comic-Con. Okay, so Renuka, I guess if you come up with your question, feel free to unmute yourself, interrupt us at any time, or you can type it into the chat and we'll get to your question. I know that you said something about an audio mezzanine problem you were having. We'd love to help you, so let us know. Until then, Daniel, you had mentioned you'd like to go forward with something you've been working on?
Yeah, sure, yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, I did some work on the Carbon board. Now, for those who don't know, the Carbon is a microcontroller board from our kind of IoT family. And it's an interesting architecture in the sense that it's actually got 2 microcontrollers on the device. You can see in the center there's an STM32 kind of main microcontroller. That's quite a powerful one. And then on the right, in the little RF cage, which is not soldered down, is a Bluetooth device, which is also a microcontroller. They're both ARM-based microcontrollers. One is the Cortex M4, and the other is a Cortex M0. No, yeah, M0, I think. And only the main micro is tapped out to all the connectors. So the little micro in there is only really there to do as a Bluetooth peripheral, and it attaches to the STM32. This does create a slight problem in the sense that people need to be able to program the Bluetooth firmware when they upgrade things. And in fact, when this board was released in Las Vegas, I had the pleasure of walking in to a room on Saturday morning to find 200 carbons and somebody sitting there trying to program every single one manually ahead of time so that when we gave them out to people, it would already have the radio firmware in it. I joined in the bagging process and spent most of the rest of the morning helping put these things in and out of bags, get them programmed and put them back in again. It's a shame, and if you want to hack your radio firmware, you're pretty stuck. So there is this rather awesome little open source debug probe called a Blackmagic probe, which if I share, I hope you can see this. That should be sharing my webpage now. So can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is the full Blackmagic probe, which you can go out and buy. They're relatively cheap. They're certainly less than $100. And they've got lots of static protection and hardening across the I/O interface and things like that, together with easy access to UART and a couple of other bits and bobs. And they're designed there to program microcontrollers. And the really awesome thing is that the main processor is an STM32, and it's open source. All the code running on this debug probe is open source. Since we have an STM32 on the Carbon, that puts us in a brilliant position because we can run that firmware on the STM32, run 2 wires across the board that you have, the Carbon board, to connect to the programming pins on the little radio microcontroller. And that allows you to download a firmware and update the firmware using nothing but the Carbon itself. So for people who haven't got JTAG probes littered around their house like some of us kind of old school people, it gives them the opportunity to reprogram the firmware without needing any extra hardware at all. So that's what I did. I did the port. It was only really setting a few bits and pieces of clocks and picking a sensible pinout. So it's all carefully arranged, if we look very carefully here, so that the pinout on the top is all continuous pins. So you get VCC ground and the signal wires in a continuous row out of the low speed connector. And I'll just I recorded a quick demo of this in action. So this is the Blackmagic firmware after I ported it, and this is me starting to build it. It's very important to set the probe host because the default probe host is the purchasable hardware that I showed you at the beginning. And I will add that it's an awesome piece of hardware. So some people in the know have it. I don't personally. But I'll advertise that hardware as well because it's pretty cool and very versatile. But in this case, I've built the firmware on top of a Carbon instead. You can see it's built there. I'm now just resetting the Carbon board, holding down boot 0, which puts it into DFU mode, ready to have the firmware built into it. You can see that it's come up with a bootloader. And this is now me putting the code into this of the microcontroller. So I've got 2 Carbon boards here. I haven't actually attached it to the radio firmware. I've got 1 Carbon trying to program another Carbon because the wiring's more robust and so on. So that's all burnt now. You can see that it's come up as a probe on the Carbon. I can load GDB and I can use the remote protocol to talk directly to a ACM device running on the target, running inside the microcontroller. So the Blackmagic probe speaks GDB remote protocol natively. So I can just run these GDB commands, connect to the thing. We're now actually connected to the second STM32. And with a single command, the load command, it'll burn the flash. So what's happening here is we're sending a memory dump to the micro, and the probe is automatically recognizing which bits are flash and which bit of memory. And if it's given flash, it will run flashing commands on the micro, which means you can literally just run a normal GDB session. You type load, it flashes everything, you type run, and it goes. And you can see here that this is the stack at the end of the program running there. It's trying to run the GDB loop to get a packet. It's waiting for the packet, hasn't got it yet, so it will continue sitting there polling until it receives a packet via USB asking it to do something. So that's essentially the full demo. So just to go back to what you've seen there, that's a GDB probe running inside this Blackmagic device. I can use that to program and debug other micros. I can also use it to get the Carbon to program itself. I haven't demonstrated that because I don't actually have a radio firmware that I've played with very much. But I've been helping a couple of people try and get started on that. We can certainly read the device ID out. And we know that some other developers at Linara have used this Blackmagic probe to flash the radio firmware. So I think that's all I wanted to say about this. Like I say, it's just a little project. It takes a lovely bit of open source code, applies it to our platform, and essentially for us, I wouldn't really recommend using a Carbon as your debugger because there are cheaper and more suitable boards to do that with. But it is really cool to be able to reprogram your own radio firmware without any additional stuff. So this is the tree where you can get the stuff. Yep.
Was this addressed in any forum posts that you so we can share the link to the forum post at least? Or was this just something that you've been working on your own time?
It's just something I was working on. I planned to blog about it. I was hoping that Gareth, the chap, Gareth McMullen, who wrote the original version of the firmware, I've got a pull request open with him at the moment. I was not planning originally to blog about it until I'd landed this code upstream, and I was going to say, instead of pointing at my GitHub, I wanted to point at the official project GitHub. But that's been taking a long time to go upstream. So this was reminded to me because I got a bug report this week for the first time about some of the documentation in the work that I did. So I fixed the documentation and updated the pull request. And that put it in my mind, and I thought I'd just talk about it here in case folks are interested. So you did hear it here first. It's not written anywhere else yet, but we will blog about it soon.
Nice. Yeah, and with all of that, we did just push out a new method of submitting blogs, and it's still in kind of, I want to say, the beta phases, but the entire blog site on 96Boards is now run by backend GitHub Markdown. So you can just clone the blog repository, write yourself a nice little blog, submit a pull request, and we will get around to putting it up onto the website. I personally think that that's pretty cool. Cool, Daniel. Thanks very much. Did anyone have any questions for Daniel? I know it went kind of fast, but any questions for Daniel? Nada.
I could do it again more slowly, but unfortunately the video was quite a pace and I had to try and keep up with it.
You're okay. So it looks like Renuka, I hope I'm saying your name properly, but she put in her question about working with the Dragonboard 410C and the audio mezzanine. Now the exercise that you're doing is the Alexa instructions. And I got to ask first, what's the version or which release of the Debian release are you using? Are you using 1704, 1609? Because I have heard some issues with the new release running that demo. Also, it'd be nice if you could share the link to the instructions that you're following, because I think that this instruction set, it's either on the 96Boards projects page or it's on the Qualcomm Developer Network projects page.
It's a Qualcomm project, and I don't know who wrote it because there's no information in there about who wrote it. So I think Renuka might be somebody I've been helping on the forum as hard as I can. Unfortunately, she's now reached a stage where I've not got an audio mezzanine, so I can't solve the final problem. But yeah, so I think it was 1606 because that allowed NPM to work. So Node Package Manager is no longer packaged in Debian, and that means when we go to the new Debian releases, we don't have access to it. And all the instructions from Qualcomm were based on using this older release. So the older release, I think everything's gone through. There's also a bug introduced in the Amazon repo, which we've kind of rolled back for. So there's been lots of work, but unfortunately, this last thing about actually how to make it record audio. I haven't got the bits to help, unfortunately. So I've seen John Mark helping as well, but
yeah. So it's funny because the one I think who wrote this exercise, it was I think it was Rajan from Qualcomm, and he's usually in this call every week. He's in this call, and this is the one time he's not here. So I just texted him right now. See if he joins. We'll see. I mean, otherwise, what I can do for you, Renuka, is that if you would like, you can send me an email and I can patch you in with someone. Otherwise, we can address it later. And my email, I'm not afraid to share it. It's just robertwolff@linaro.org, and we can hopefully tackle this together. Or you can at least send me an email, or I can tackle the forum and then push people to the forum post. So hopefully, we'll try to get this resolved for you.
Robert, may I ask a question? For Renuka.
Yeah, of course.
Renuka, are you the one that was on the forum on Ren Snappy?
Oh, Renuka, yeah, actually, that's a good question. Are you Ren Snappy? I'm really curious about this one.
She's mute. I think she's mute.
Yeah, she's muted. That's all right. If you could share your handle, we could also communicate on the 96Boards forum handle. We could also communicate with you that way as well. So your 96Boards forum handle. While we address that, it looks like Nick Hill has a question or comment. I'm just going to read this out loud real quick. She says, hi, thanks for hosting this session. I have a question. I'm currently taking the IoT course on Coursera, and it's really exciting. So there are some assignments to be submitted which will be evaluated by peers. Is there a way to know who all are taking these courses currently, or if there would be people around to evaluate submitted assignments during current session of the course? Well, what I can tell you is that currently, depending on which of the 6 courses you're enrolled in, of the entire 6-course specialization, you're enrolled with thousands of other people. So right now, I think that even the course with the least amount of people has several thousand enrolled. So as soon as you submit something, they get pinged. Someone submitted an assignment, and you should be getting your peer-reviewed assignments reviewed by your peers, right? I mean, and this is something that Coursera needs to make sure happens. Yes. So, if you have any other questions on that, you can always post on the forums on Coursera, and people seem to be, at least students seem to be more responsive than myself. You know, I'm one of the TAs for that course, but it's so time consuming, and I try to forward people over to the 96Boards forums, which is a little bit more manageable. So you can also bring some of your technical questions to not questions about Coursera, but technical questions about your Dragonboard and, you know, the stuff you're doing to the 96Boards forum, and that will also work. All right. Excellent. There you go. So those were 2 questions. I hope we were able to help you. Renuka, if you sent me an email, I'll try to find someone who can help. I just got a text back from Rajan. He's not able to make it in today, unfortunately. But if you come back next week, he'll be here. He's usually here every week. Just kind of one day. Just the, luck. Your luck. Sorry. All right. What's next on my list? I have, if John Mark, if you had a community minute you'd like to share with us.
I have just a question, because I was looking the other day on this nice board, which is named, let's see, what was that? I lost it. Yes, it's the MediaTek X20.
Yes. What's going on?
I was just wondering about something. The MediaTek X20, matter of fact, as the analog connector as female, and on the 96 board they all come with male. What's up here?
So that is not part of the spec. That analog header is not in the 96 board specification. So Qualcomm decided to sell their board. I should say Qualcomm in collaboration with other people decided to sell their board with an unpopulated analog expansion header, while MediaTek decided to sell it with a populated expansion header, right? Don't quote me on the names because I'm not saying MediaTek said we're going to sell it like this, but in conjunction with their team.
This is the analog extension. Is also the analog extension is something else.
It's not documented, the pinouts for the X20's analog. I mean, I've asked around and everyone is like no one knows what the exact pinouts will be. It's just there.
So go ahead, Daniel.
We shouldn't have hidden pinouts because it should be in the schematic diagram, because we do require vendors to have a schematic diagram. So we ought to be able to find out what the pins do from a schematic diagram. That's not the same as saying that they work in the software. But the actual physical pinout we should be able to get from the schematic. And yes, so the principle, as Robert said in the 96 boards, is we've defined physical positions for a collection of connectors, the power, the USB, SD card, things like that. And vendors are allowed and encouraged to innovate in other areas. So some have chosen to put JTAG down, some have put down the analog connectors, plugs for aerials, things like that. So the other connectors going around the ring do vary from vendor to vendor in the kind of spare space. And you see these even more strongly in the enterprise platforms. So in the enterprise platforms, there's actually quite a lot of back panel space where we recommend putting edge connectors, but we don't define what those edge connectors should be, so that you can put down kind of eSATA or other kind of connectors at the edge that are useful on that particular application. So we do want there to be some flexibility alongside the standardization, and it's always a difficult call which ones we should standardize and which we shouldn't. But certainly there are chips where analog doesn't make sense. So
Well, I want to just kind of about all this discussion is something in short. That means on those two boards we have an inconsistency. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, but that's something that they've decided to set apart. So let me just real quick, let me touch on this. So basically what John Mark is referring to is, and if we're going to look at 396 boards here, okay, all the same consumer edition specification. First, we'll look at the high key. Okay, this is the high key from LeMaker. And what John Mark is referring to is this little space right here between the DC jack and the low speed expansion header. So in this little space for the high key, this space is undefined in the specification. You can put whatever you want there. The high key decided to put this big old capacitor and a button. Okay. The Dragonboard decided to put an unpopulated analog header. Okay. That's what they chose to put there. And then MediaTek decided to put a female header populated. So when you buy these three boards, it's inconsistent to that sense. When you're talking about the analog expansion header, though, when you're talking about the audio mezzanine, that board was specifically designed for the Dragonboard. So it wasn't meant to be used with any other 96 boards. However, Sahaj Sarup, who's in the call, he wrote a really cool blog and I think he even made a video on this about how to modify the audio mezzanine for other 96 boards. And essentially what you have to do, and the audio mezzanine is, do I have one hanging up here? I do. The audio mezzanine is right here. And as you can see on the back of the audio mezzanine, it has a female header and a male header, which should fit perfectly on the Dragonboard, right? But Sahaj unsolders this. So he takes off this header, and then you can either replace it with a male header or you can get rid of it completely and then use it for the I/O. So it's kind of like up to you. That's right, Saj?
Yeah, that would be right.
I mean, the audio board is interesting because it is the cheapest UART adapter, and it's got GPIO breakout as well. So although it's called the audio mezzanine, you could conceivably choose to buy it for other boards, depopulate that header, and simply use it as a cheap voltage shifter. It's an option.
it also, not only does it shift it, but it also brings the pins up from 2.0 millimeter to 2.54 millimeter, which is kind of breadboard standard. You'll find a lot more ribbon cables that are friendly to the 2.54 than the 2.0. Yeah. So John Mark, did that help a little bit?
That's it. Yeah, that was just to understand this point. Thank you.
Oh no, of course.
I really encourage vendors to do something interesting on each board. You know, having something distinct to make their board more awesome simply gives you more flexibility in the 96 board space. So I'm really excited when people put down weird and wonderful connectors, providing they're making something new happen. You don't want all the 96 boards to completely the same, because it would be slightly dull.
Yeah. So I'm gonna address some of these questions real quick here. I saw Michael roll his eyes. I'm watching everyone. All right. So we have a question from Muckle. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing it. Muckle Sharma. It says, I saw a thread on the forum, and I'm guessing this is the Coursera forum, that says students will get a free Dragonboard during the course. So various companies got together. I believe it was Qualcomm, but they said, we want to give away a certain amount of Dragonboards to students with financial needs. So it is possible to get a free Dragonboard for enrolling in the Coursera course, the IoT specialization. However, it's not through us. So it's not through 96Boards or Qualcomm or Arrow or anyone. It's through Coursera. So Coursera is the ones who manage this. You need to go into their financial aid system and fill out a form with them. And I'm not sure exactly how many of those are left. This course has been out for over a year now, and I believe many of those have already been given away. There was a certain amount that they were going to be doing. I hope that answers your question there, Muckle. The other option that you have is to fill that out, or like I think it was, who was it? Carl or Kurt said that we do raffles here every now and then. You know, I mean, we just gave away 5 Dragonboards a couple weeks ago. A while back, we gave away 10 more, give away mezzanines. Today, I'm going to give away a bunch of swag. So, like, you know, we do giveaways in this show. It's not as, your chances are still, you know, play the odds, right? But yeah, depending on where you live, Dragonboard can get a little pricey, unfortunately. Banj. So the question is, I am student at CDAC, Pune, India, doing PG in embedded systems design. I want to start my career in IoT domain. Please help me. How do I start career in IoT? Could talk probably hours about that. You know, I mean, you want to get started in IoT, you're in the right place. You know, you're with a bunch of very smart people. You can ask questions, more specific questions, you know, not just necessarily that, but go online, talk with the people who matter, contribute in open source. Michael here, he does a lot of open source work with hardware. You know, like, get to know the right people, follow people on Twitter, follow people on GitHub and LinkedIn, and, you know, start finding what you're interested in around IoT, because it's a huge topic, right? And you're not going to be able to learn everything right away. So that's a question that I think we can continue to touch on as you kind of follow the show and hear other people's questions. And yes, the Coursera course is probably a good place to start too. Sign up for the Coursera course; it's free. Anyone else have any advice for him? Yeah. All right. So
I do.
Taylor. That Todd?
Yeah.
Hey, Todd.
Actually, IoT is kind of like, you know, there's so many meanings to it. It's kind of like big data or machine learning or AI right now. It is such a huge, wide, and diverse field. It has many, many meanings. One of the early, I actually, in fact, I'm going to take a picture and post it. One of the early pioneers, at least academic-wise, in what they called Internet of Things or Internet Everywhere, was a lot of research going on at Berkeley, MIT, and Stanford I had the good fortune to work for what they call a principal investigator called Dave Culler, who invented, and this is almost 20 years ago. And in some sense, IoT, Internet of Things, and embedded devices everywhere has been going on for decades. In fact, our buddy Mad Dog could probably give us things on that. But Dave Culler wrote a thing called Tiny OS. I'm going to click on it. Google Dave Culler or Tiny OS or what the latest IoT things they're working on. The other thing related to the other question, but it kind of relates to IoT. And again, what scale are you talking? You're talking subatomic scale? Are you talking the I can't see? Are you talking just small little devices, whatever? One of the maker spaces I was at in Boulder has a classic exercise that relates to your board. They said the very first programming exercise you should learn on any of these IoT boards or any of these embedded devices is literally just get a light to turn on and off. And I'm going to take a picture of both of them. You might recognize the light. It has, I don't know the pinouts. You probably can recognize it. But that was just two ideas on kind of two of those huge subject areas you just mentioned. So let me take a picture and shut up and let it go from there.
Bad Dog, Todd called you out for a second too. Did you have anything to add? There's the Tiny OS book. You're muted, Mad Dog.
And what is this? You can tell me, but I've been told your basic first, kind of like the hello world of IoT or even Dragonboards or Internet of Things, is to write a little program to simply make this turn on and off. So you can tell me what this is. These are pretty standard, I guess.
Todd, that is called a PIR sensor. So it's a passive infrared sensor. You have VCC, you have out, and you have ground. And so essentially what it is you have two, and I believe it's, if I'm getting the material correct, you have two pyroelectric plates that are next to each other, and it measures the vibrations of infrared waves. So if you have a difference in two infrared waves, one on one side, one on the other, it triggers an output of the sensor, which can be interpreted as an input on your IoT device. So then, that's what you get in like your garage sensor, right? Like someone triggers a sensor and a light turns on. That's the infrared sensor that is the input.
Can I say something? Can I say something? The PIR has to work with a mezzanine board because the level of the voltage is not suitable for the Dragonboard. Needs 5 volt VCC.
So I kind of agree with. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Robert.
No, please, Mad Dog. I'm done for now.
I kind of agree with everything that Todd said. I mean, Internet of Things these days is a little bit like cloud computing, right? And depending on who you talk to, cloud computing can be any number of things. So there are some people that are working with Internet of Things as being a portion of the cloud that you actually program to cloud interfaces, and then you can program Internet of Things devices out there and not have to know about the device itself. It depends on how you're going after it. And it's a very big subject. So, it requires knowledge about security. It requires knowledge about latency and power issues. So it's a very big subject. And almost any place you start is a place to start.
Well, and the other thing is are people talking at the MEMS, i.e., the sub-eye visual level, or are they talking at where the eye can see and above? And then what size? Are we talking, a device like this? Or are we talking a billboard in downtown Manhattan? I mean, they're all IoT things.
Right.
Robert, can you hear me?
Yeah, who just said that?
No, it's Money.
Money!
Hey, I've been trying to speak for almost 15 minutes, but I can't. I had some issues actually. So I got a question for Daniel.
Daniel's gone.
Oh, is it? Okay. Cool.
We'll save it for next week. It's all right.
Sure.
Yeah. Did you know what the topic is right now though?
I was trying to reboot my computer a couple of times.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, so Daniel had to leave halfway through the show, but right now we're just kind of talking about kind of the general topic of IoT.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. So I mean, I'm going to address another question in the chat or a comment. Muckle, I can't help you get a free Dragonboard, unfortunately, unless it would be with my own money, which I do try to do some giveaways, but it wouldn't be fair, right? So I mean, you're more than welcome to participate in any of the open hours show giveaways, raffles. We do that kind of stuff, semi-frequently, and that's something I could recommend at least on my end. Otherwise, you have to go through Coursera, and Coursera does have a financial aid program. And like I said before, please just go there and sign up to their financial aid program. If you're enrolled in the IoT specialization from University of California, San Diego, just dropped my high keyboard, dang it. And if you're enrolled in that, then you have a chance of getting a free board there. So that's what I would recommend. I hope that helps, Muckle. And you can always join our open hours channel on IRC, and like stuff in there. Never know what could happen. Great. Now, unless we have anyone else adding stuff to this conversation before we switch topics.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, it's Mukul. Am I audible?
Mukul, hi. I'm sorry. I try to pronounce. Sometimes it's hard for me. Mukul, nice to meet you.
No. Nice to meet you. Actually, I have done projects in Raspberry Pi and Arduino. And a couple of
awesome.
other IoT platforms.
Yeah, that's
when you have.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, the question is when I tackling any particular IoT problem, how we should choose a platform? Like there are several platforms, Qualcomm, we have Arduino, we have Raspberry Pis, we have Beaglebone, we have these platforms. How you choose that particular platform?
So Mukul, you're slightly cutting out. It's pretty tough to hear you. However, I think what you're saying is when you want to develop something, you want to work on a project or do any sort of IoT implementation, how do you choose the platform to work on? Whether it's Beaglebone, Raspberry Pi, 96Boards, Arduino, how do you choose, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there are many variables when you're trying to choose, and Mad Dog has actually given some really good talks on this. In fact, I think we did a Christmas special at the end of last year where he pretty much broke down everything about single board computers. Is that right, Mad Dog?
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can refer you to those episodes. I think we did 2 parts. No, one. It was 1 2-hour episode. It was a good one. So,
just briefly, it has to do. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Let's go. Mukul first.
I have read an economist, stuff that says IoT is just a simple like www. Is it so? Like it's not a sustainable thing. It's a hot product as of now, and it won't sustain forever. It's a trending thing that will.
Mukul, I'm gonna have to ask you to try and fix your microphone. There's something going on there because we can't. It's cutting in and out. We get like all of the prepositions, but then all of like the good stuff, it's cutting out completely, and I'm really sorry. So if you just want to maybe like, it sounds like something just jiggle the jack or something. That's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like it's a connection or anything.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible. Let's see.
Okay. So actually, I've read a survey from an economist that says IoT is just like a bubble that will burst soon. It's just like a hot trend that will survive only 5 to 10 years. It's not a sustainable thing. But what you think about it?
I
What do you
disagree
think,
with
Mad
that.
Dog? There you go.
I radically disagree with that. I agree with Mad Dog. I think it's some things are bubbles, but IoT is only going to get more diverse, more depth, and more systems out there, and they're only going to get more complex and/or go the other way and get simpler just to handle the complexity. I mean, yeah, I agree with Mad Dog on this one.
Okay.
Wait.
Yes, sir. You speak.
Well, no, I mean, I'm going to also agree with Mad Dog and Todd on this one. Not only just because what they said, but it's so IoT is so broad for you to say that, you know, it's a bubble and it's going to burst. Maybe one aspect or one little piece or one vague interpretation of what someone or some group of people might think IoT is, but the whole general idea of it is, I mean, it's too big. That's my opinion.
I just want to add
Allows
to
us
that.
to have intelligence.
Now you're cutting out, Mad Dog. I think that's a network issue.
Robert, can you hear me?
Yeah, Mani.
So I just want to add to that. So what Mukul is saying is that the IoT technology is not going to change, but the tool which is used in the IoT is going to change. So that's what they were referring to actually. So right now, if you are using a cloud technology, so it's going to fade out in a couple of years because something much improved will come and then it will gain its place. That's what they were meaning actually. But the underlying technology, IoT, is not going to die.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Muko, I'm going to have to mute you just for now.
Sure.
Please feel free to feel free to unmute yourself whenever just your dog's barking. So when it comes down to it, I mean, like it's kind of the same thing. It's like cell phones, right? I mean, didn't Elon Musk just recently say something like cell phones are obsolete already because now you can put they're already studying on ways to interface chips with your brain, and so when that happens within the next 10 or 15 years, cell phones become useless. So it's kind of like, you know, we really don't know, but you know.
Well, I think why it may seem this way is there's no like one way to do it. There's so many different protocols going around. You have MQTT and all of that other stuff that may seem like a mixed bag and not something that is going in one direction. So I think the confusion would solve out itself, and something better would take.
Who am I getting feedback from on here? Renuka, I noticed you unmuted yourself. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, actually, I want to ask that same question regarding Dragonboard potency. And actually, I'm using that audio mezzanine. Earlier I was using Android OS, but I just rebooted that Linux in Dragonboard potency. So like I'm using the how to set up the Amazon Alexa voice service setup on the Dragonboard potency. But currently I'm stuck in the last step, that is 2.10. Like whatever I'm saying, I'm not able to hear it back from that. Like I'm not getting anything, whatever I'm saying in return. So how to resolve that?
Yeah. So did you send me an email yet?
No,
So
not yet.
The thing is that with that question, I have not personally gone through that example, so I can't say I can't say definitively how to fix it because I haven't tried troubleshooting it yet. And the people who made that example are not from 96Boards. So those I think are some people from Qualcomm or some other affiliate with them that made that demo. So we are usually joined by representatives from Qualcomm every week. Every week, in fact, they're usually here the whole episode every week. This is the one time that they haven't showed up. So you come with a question on the one day that we don't have a Qualcomm person here, and I'm really sorry about that. What we can do is you can either forward me the question that you have if you posted it in the forums, like 96Boards forums. You can give me your forum post, and then I can forward it to the people that might be able to help you. Or you can come back next week, and we'll help you out next week. That's pretty much what I could offer you on that. Otherwise, I'm also not sure of what exercise you say part 2.10, but that doesn't mean anything to me.
Okay,
Because I
I'll send you
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, I'll send you the complete documentation.
Okay, see that'll help a lot more, right? Because we didn't write that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'd love to help you. We want to help you. So if you send that to me, my email address is in there. It's robert.wolff@Lenaro, and we'll try to find a resolution for you.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Cool. Thank you, Renuka. Great. So last things last, and of course, as always, please feel free to interrupt if you have more questions. I wanted to give Mani, I have two last things. One is, I don't know, Mani, did you want to talk about anything? I feel that you mentioned something that you were going to talk about today.
Yeah. So I just wanted to run through a couple of forum posts and my last blog post about that device tree overlay.
Okay, yeah, sure. Go ahead. Got a couple minutes.
Yeah. So one of the interesting forum posts is that something about clock stretching in Dragonboard 410C. So one of the user reported that he was trying to interface on I2C slave, which is very slow, operating at 50 kilohertz, I guess, to Dragonboard 410C, but he was not able to detect using I2C detect or some other I2C tools available in Debian. But he was able to interface that slave with Arduino, which is capable of clock stretching to that low speed. So he was asking that question in the forum whether clock stretching has been supported in 410C I2C controller or not. And Lawrence King actually replied that. So basically, clock stretching is the underlying feature which should be implemented by any I2C controller in any single board computer. So, but one of the limitation in as far as Linux is that we do have some timeouts, which is actually a software limitation, which means that your slave cannot hold down the clock line forever. So theoretically, it's possible from the hardware perspective, but Linux driver has the timeout in that. So if your slave does pull out the line for almost greater than timeout period, it's going to cut off the connection. So that's one of the issue he was facing. And it was actually explained there itself. I just thought about bringing it here. And one more thing is that one of the user reported frequent reboot of latest Debian because of poor Wi-Fi connection. So that's one of the issue reported in this release. And Nico actually replied that they were able to pinpoint that issue and they were working on fixing that. So hopefully in a week or two, we were able to, they will be able to send a patch to that. So that's what. So that's it for the forum post. And I do have an update on my last blog post, which is about loading device. Yeah.
Would you mind sharing the link to that forum post for us? So
oh yeah, sure. Sorry.
You can have it in the chat. No, that's all right.
I just copied it, but I forgot to share it. So yeah, so here are the links to those blog posts and the forum post. So the blog is that about loading device tree overlays through config.fs file system. So when you compare 96 boards with the Raspberry Pi chip or any other BeagleBone Black, any other single board computers available online, I can say that one of the main thing we were missing is that ability to load the device tree overlays, because it will give you a functionality to add or stack your mezzanine on top of your 96 boards, so which have their own set of hardwares. So right now we don't have any of those kind of mezzanines, but in future it's going to come out. So in those cases, it will be very difficult to interact with the hardwares like sensors which are present on the mezzanines. So what I have done is that I have taken some patches by Pantelis. So he has added a patch which is not mainlined due to some security concerns. So what it does is it enables us to load the device tree overlays from user space. So through config file system. So you can compile the device tree overlay using the normal device tree compiler DTC, and then you can actually load into the running kernel by using the config file system. So that's actually possible. It's like expanding the functionality of the device tree running dynamically. So this is one of the talk which, this is one of the discussion we had internally. So should we actually proceed in that way, or we have to invest our time on figuring out something else? And we do have some other options like loading the overlays through U-boot, as U-boot is already supported by Dragonboard as a third stage bootloader, I guess. So yeah, we got a couple of options here, and we are exploring it. And right now we have the options to load overlay using config.fs. That's it.
Great, Mani. Thanks for sharing that with us. If there's any questions for Mani, speak up. The last two things I want to talk about. One, we had our first community mezzanine meeting today, this Monday. Okay, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this, it is a new initiative that's being headed by the one and only Michael Welling here on the call. He created a repository, 96boards-community, and we're basically the goal is this. It's what I kind of want to refer to as a steering committee kind of thing for the community. It's not anything official, nothing that's going to dictate the moving mountains, within these big industries that are creating stuff. But, as a community, we can come together, we can share our ideas, brainstorm and collaborate together to make some of the things that we want. And this has to do with these mezzanine boards that can clip on top of your 96 boards. What is it that we need as a community? And so together we're going to move forward on this. I have a 1 hour slot reserved every Monday. For those of you who are interested in joining us, feel free to ping me anytime. I can add you to the calendar list. Otherwise, there is a repository which will begin to be populated soon. I'm going to share the repository. Mezzanine community repo, boom. That repository, feel free to fork it. It still needs a lot of work. Like I said, we just started it at the beginning of this week, and you'll find meeting notes there, different boards that we plan on working on, CAD files. Eventually it will grow into CAD files, and we hope this will continue to grow and become something that people are excited to collaborate with. That's that. Michael, did you have anything you wanted to add to this? Still muted.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please, John Mark.
Go ahead.
It's like OpenHours, but it's 1 hour earlier.
And it's 3 days earlier.
Yeah, I was off because I was wrong on the time. So.
Oh yeah, Mike. So we left the call, and then John Mark joined after everyone left, and he's like, "Hey, I'm ready. Let's do this."
Just a bit stupid. Yeah.
Everyone was gone. Sorry. No, yeah, it's true. It's on Monday. It's Monday at 3 p.m. UTC.
Okay. Yeah, we have a few mezzanines kind of planned out, or in the idea category. I think the one that Robert wanted to do was like a Raspberry Arduino header combo thing. There was talk of a click mezzanine, which would be kind of cool. I'd probably want to work on that one first because it'd be simpler. And Barry brought forth a couple of designs already that I think I'm going to transfer to KiCad. One was just a breakout, kind of like a breadboard thing, which is kind of ready to go. And then there's another one he's still working on with the Cambridge guys. So hopefully that actually pans out, and then we can start posting the design for that. It'd be pretty cool to have a couple out there that were kind of community-driven designs. So if you have an idea for a mezzanine board, you can go to the repository and you can do an issue on the repository saying, hey, I'd like to see something like this on a mezzanine. If you're inclined, you can fork the repository and do merge requests. We'll have to make sure that we have some guidelines on submissions and review before anything gets accepted. So we'll work on the guidelines, and I think we can post the new mezzanine guidelines on our brought out as well. There's a PDF floating around. I don't know if that's publicly available yet, but I'd have to ask Robert on that one.
It is publicly available. I'll make sure so it will end up on the mezzanine page. So when you go to 96boards.org and you go to the mezzanine page, you'll have a link to this to download it very soon. Sorry, the responses should now be accepting responses, everyone. Sorry. So yeah, Mike, another thing I that you just mentioned is reviewing and getting your stuff accepted here. But I'd like to say that talking about this earlier, right? Someone said, what's a good way to get into this field, IoT, building, collaborating in the open source world? This is your chance. I mean, this is a brand new committee or community that's starting up from scratch. We literally just started this on Monday. You want to be a part of this. You want to contribute. You want to learn how to use Git and GitHub and merging and pull requests and talking with people and getting your ideas out there. This is your chance, right? So you're not saying that, even if you're not a hardware person, this is still kind of going to get you in the whole feel of how open source and community collaboration to a certain extent is and how fun it can be. So whoever asked, I think that was Muko earlier. Anything else, Mike?
No, just kind of hammer out some details. Probably do that next week or the week after. Is it a bi-weekly or weekly?
So right now I have it set to weekly. The invitations are going for the weekly meeting, but I think that we won't need weekly. Bi-weekly will probably be a little bit better for time, as in not a waste of time. So I'll probably.
Yeah.
I have some questions about this. It's one thing
Okay.
to design a board and to debug it and stuff like that. It's another thing to be able to produce them and make them available to people that want to buy them and do software around them and things. Have you guys made any ideas or anything about that? The issue of getting, say, one thing with through the board types of small, simple boards, but it's another thing with surface mount technology and be able to manufacture them in large enough quantities.
So this came up, and yes, we have talked about it. I've already kind of started to reach out to various sources, and one of the people that is in this committee is Dieter. So Dieter is he's employed by Arrow, but this is kind of something that we're doing for fun on the side, and he knows various people. We've also reached out to companies like Seed, and then we've entertained the idea of crowdfunding and Michael on his own is able to, you know, build and debug certain things just right there in his house. And then if we find a good idea, something that we want to actually move forward on, then we can start tackling these other, you know, bigger avenues. Does that make sense, Mad Dog?
Yes, but as you know, I've been working with Professor Zufo down in Brazil to produce boards and things down there. And he has a complete SMT line that's quite sophisticated. He can produce the equivalent of Samsung phones on his SMT line. He also has a smaller surface mount technology machine that you can produce, say, 5 or 10 systems for prototyping, you know, debugging, stuff like that. And I will contact him and see if he can have one of his representatives come to this meeting, because he's really busy, and to get him to come to a weekly meeting would be almost impossible. But certainly you could have somebody that would be able to attend this meeting and be able to give insight and stuff. The advantage of using his SMT line is that it is not used for production things. So he doesn't have to stop producing production things in order for him to load some materials in there and run a few runs, first of all, to get the SMT line going, and then to produce, say, 1,000 boards at a time. The other issue is having the connections with all of the vendors. This isn't as bad with Linero because they already have connections with Actions and other people who make ICs. However, for the passive components, you also need to have connections there in order to be able to get the passive components in a large enough quantity to make it reasonable price. So,
yeah, so
I can
usually from what I was told is that you submit a BOM, bill of materials, then whatever company you're working with is whether their manufacturing company will then say, listen, this particular part of your BOM is either going to be made obsolete. We can get it for cheaper from this other. We can get it for cheaper here. We recommend swapping out these parts of your BOMs for these different pieces, kind of thing. Or this is available through us. This isn't, kind of thing. Oh, Rajan joined.
Right. That's right. And the university already has a lot of these arrangements already set up through a nonprofit organization called Outside Tech that would be able to help. I'm not saying this is the only way you guys should use. I'm just making it available to you so that you know that it's there in case you'd like to use it.
Absolutely. No, and I think we would, Mad Dog, we would love to have the representative from the university in Sao Paulo at our meetings. And also, it would be great if any of their students would like to join and contribute as well, since they will probably be the people working on it if they were to, say, commission or take on one of these projects. I do need to, real quick, if you don't mind sticking around for after hours, I need to close out this episode. So I just want to make a last call for questions, and then we'll go into after hours and talk more about this. And Renuka, please stick around. Stay here for just a couple more minutes after we stop the recording. Rajan just joined, and so he might be able to help you with your questions, okay, on Alexa. So just give us a minute here. I need to announce the winners, the first ever winners of the Community Points initiative that we started 15 weeks ago. Okay, so people have been joining Open Hours for 62 weeks now. In fact, we've only taken 2 weeks off, so 64 weeks total, 62 episodes. We started this initiative 15 weeks ago, and I drew, based on points, the amount. I have 3 top leaders and 1 winner. Now I'm going to try to put together 3 packages. If I can. It's going to kind of all depend on shipping and availability of the stuff I have, but 1 package for sure. And I was pleasantly surprised. Ragnar has literally shown up and filled out every single form since this initiative started. So congratulations to Ragnar. Out of the 15 points, you literally have every single one of the points. I was very surprised. So congratulations, Ragnar. I'll be sending you an email. The one thing I do need from you is for you to drop me an email. I know I have it inside of the D3 competition form. So if you want, would you like me to just use that email, Ragnar? Because then I can use that email, and then I just need to send out a request for various pieces of your information, and then we'll get you a nice little, nice little welcome package. And thank you so much for participating. Now, the other 4 people on the list. So I did do top 5. Second place is Anthony Aker. And gosh, I realized maybe I shouldn't be saying full names. Sorry, Anthony E. And you're in the chat here as well. And then we have John Mark, third place. So we're all in the running there. Thank you, you 3, very much for being for participating so much in this. Anthony has 12, John Mark has 11 points. So Ragnar 15, Anthony 12, John Mark 11. Then going on from there, there's a tie for third place or fourth place, which is Thomas, Kayo, Tim Hammer, and Sahaj Sarup. So you guys are all in fourth place. And then fifth place goes to, there's a big tie for fifth place as well. So I'm not going to go with that. But it's funny because I was going through these sheets and I realized that so many people that I see every day don't go to the sheet. Like Tyeth, you're here every day, but I don't think you fill out the sheet every time. So maybe we can figure something out with that. Many people are here every day. And Kurt, you too. I post the links at the end of every episode, Kurt, just so you know. Like right a second ago, I posted it up there. So that's the Google form for today. And then the code is OpenQA, and the code changes every week. I usually leave it open until the end of after hours. So after the show, I stop the recording, and then we hang out for another 20 minutes to an hour, and then I close the responses. Great. I'm going to close out the episode now with an announcement for next week's episode, and it's going to be a freaking awesome one. All right. This is how awesome it's going to be. There was a competition in Brazil, okay, hosted by Qualcomm. They sent out 20 Dragonboards and Link Sprite kits all around the whole country. They picked the 20 best projects of I think there was like over 100 submissions. They picked the 20 best project ideas, pitches. They gave these guys kits, these folks, ladies and gentlemen, kits. And they submitted their projects and they got winners. Okay, so out of these, we're going to get 12 people visiting us from Brazil. They're going to be in the studio next week. We're actually going to take it to Think-A-Bit Lab once again. Rajan's going to be with us, and we're going to have the Think-A-Bit Lab. I don't know if it got confirmed yet, but we'll be coming to you live with the whole crew from Brazil. We're going to have a whole nice setup there, taking questions. Hopefully, we can hook up some Dragonboards, show some of these demos that the guys put together, and I don't know, have some fun, talk about their projects, and see what goes from there. So it should be an interesting episode. And if you have any more questions about that, feel free to bring them to the OpenHours forum on 96boards.org forums. You can go to the general and find the OpenHours topic, or you can bring them to IRC on #OpenHours. So we'll see you next week. Join us at the end of the countdown, 96boards.org/OpenHours. Thank you. I'm going to hit the stop recording button here, but then we'll go Facebook next. Thanks.